All right, let's dive into one of the most fascinating and, frankly, one of the wildest books in the entire Bible, the Book of Daniel. Now, a lot of us probably think we know the story from Sunday school, right? But believe me, the full story is way stranger and so much more surprising than you could possibly imagine.
I absolutely love this description because it just nails the epic feel of the book. I mean, Daniel isn't just about some guy who's good with lions. No way. It's this huge, sprawling narrative packed with political intrigue, cosmic battles, and these absolutely mind bending visions. It goes so far beyond those stories we remember as kids.
Okay, so if there's one single thing you need to grasp about the Book of Daniel, it's this. It's not really one book. It's actually two very different parts that have been masterfully woven together. And seriously, understanding this split structure is the key to unlocking the whole thing.
And you can really see that sharp contrast right here. The first half, chapters 1 through 6, that's all heroic stories set in the Babylonian court. It's written mostly in Aramaic, which was kind of like the international language of its time. But then, bam, chapter 7 hits and everything changes. The genre flips to this wild apocalyptic prophecy. The focus shifts from court drama to cosmic visions, and even the language switches to Hebrew, the sacred language of the Jewish people. It's seriously like you're watching a historical drama and it suddenly turns into a crazy sci-fi epic. So let's start with that first half, shall we? These are the stories that are probably the most familiar to a lot of us. They're all about these young Jewish exiles trying to stay true to their God while serving deep in the heart of a hostile, foreign empire.
Yeah, you know these ones. We're talking about Daniel and his friends turning down the king's rich food, that terrifying fiery furnace, the mysterious ghostly writing on the wall, and of course, the big one, Daniel and the lion's den. Every single one of these is like a high-stakes thriller, just testing their courage and their faith to the absolute limit. And the theme running through all these stories is just so clear, isn't it? They're meant to give courage to people who are living under oppressive rule. The big takeaway is a message of hope. It doesn't matter how powerful some earthly king seems to be, God is the one who's really in control, and he will protect those who stay faithful to him.
But right when you're getting comfortable with all these heroic tales, the book just takes this sudden, hard right turn. We get to chapters 7 through 12, and whoa, we leave the familiar royal court behind and just plunge head first into this bizarre, strange world of cosmic apocalyptic visions. So the whole style of storytelling flips. We go from a third-person narrator telling us stories about Daniel to Daniel himself speaking in the first person. He's the one telling us what he sees. And the tone, it gets so much darker. He's describing these terrifying, monstrous beasts coming out of the sea, huge battles in the heavens, a cosmic war that stretches across centuries. Now, this style of writing has a name. It's called apocalyptic. That comes from a Greek word that basically means to reveal or to uncover. And it was actually a pretty popular kind of literature for communities that were in a crisis. The whole idea was to use this vivid, symbolic language to kind of pull back the curtain on what's really going on in history. The goal was to show people that, hey, even though everything on Earth looks like total chaos, there's a divine plan still at work behind the scenes. So you're probably asking, what on earth do all these weird symbols mean, right? Well, for well over a century now, the general consensus among scholars is that these visions are basically a symbolic map of ancient history. So those four beasts, they're seen as four big empires, one after the other: Babylon, the Medes, Persia, and then Greece under Alexander the Great. And that little horn that causes so much trouble, that's almost universally identified as King Antiochus IV Epiphanes, a Greek king who just viciously persecuted the Jewish people back in the 2nd century BC. And that scholarly interpretation, that the visions are about past history, brings us right to the heart of the big debate about this book. Was it written to predict the future, or was it written as a kind of protest piece about what was happening at the time? The answer to that question really changes how you read everything. So let's dig into this. This is really the million-dollar question. Who actually wrote this book? And when did they write it? Because the answer to that question is what sparks this huge debate. Okay, so here are the two main camps, side by side. On one hand, you have the traditional view. Daniel himself wrote the book way back during the Babylonian exile, and it's all predictive prophecy about the distant future. Then, on the other hand, you have the modern scholarly consensus. This view suggests the book was written by an anonymous author much later, around the 2nd century BC. right in the middle of that horrible persecution by King Antiochus. So from this perspective, it's less about predicting the future and more about using past history, but framing it as prophecy to give hope to people who are suffering right then and there.
Now, the reason so many scholars land on that later date is because of this period right here, the Maccabean crisis. See, the historical predictions in Daniel are just incredibly, unbelievably accurate, right up until the reign of Antiochus. They describe his military campaigns, even that infamous abomination of desolation he put in the temple. But then, right around 164 BC, the year Antiochus actually died, the details suddenly get, well, fuzzy. For a lot of scholars, that's a huge clue. It suggests the author was living through these events, recording them as if they were prophecy to encourage his people.
But look, regardless of when you think it was written, the book's legacy is just immense. There's no debating that. Its ideas and its imagery have had a massive impact, shaping history, faith, and even culture for more than 2,000 years.
I mean, just think about its influence. That mysterious heavenly figure Daniel sees, the Son of Man, that becomes a title Jesus uses for himself all the time. The whole idea of 4 world kingdoms being followed by God's kingdom, that became a major blueprint for how people understood history for centuries. All that wild, vivid imagery, that basically provides the entire visual language for the New Testament's book of Revelation. And maybe most important of all, Daniel gives us one of the Old Testament's clearest, most direct statements about resurrection from the dead.
And this verse, right from the last chapter, is just revolutionary. It gives this stunning vision of hope and a final judgment that would become a cornerstone for both later Jewish and Christian beliefs about the afterlife. It's a powerful promise that whatever happens in this life, history isn't the final word. So, at the end of the day, we're left with this really crucial question. Whether you see Daniel as a detailed roadmap of the future or as this powerful piece of protest literature for people in crisis, the challenge it throws down is kind of the same. Is this book really about trying to decode a secret timeline of what's going to happen? Or is it about something else? Is it calling us to live with incredible faithfulness and courage in our own time, right now, trusting that no matter what empires rise and fall, a greater kingdom is the one that will last forever?